The 1980s in the United States left behind a unique cultural footprint, dozens of objects, habits, and sounds that became symbols of the era. This is the time before the digital revolution, when entertainment was tactile, lively, and sometimes naive. Everyday life was shaped by school lunchboxes with cartoon characters, the first arcade machines, sticky gum, and safety lessons from cartoon characters. It all created a recognizable atmosphere, bright, noisy, a little crazy. This video collects 50 hallmarks of childhood in the 80s, revealing them with detail and context. The story of one generation is in every piece. One VHS videotapes and rewinding by hand with a pencil. In the 1980s, VHS videotapes were the primary way to watch movies at home. After watching a tape, you often had to rewind it back to the beginning, which took time. If the cassette jammed or the tape fell out, many people used a pencil or pen to carefully rewind it by hand, inserting it into one of the reels and spinning it. This was particularly useful to avoid damaging the tape and to preserve the quality of the recording. Such methods became part of everyday life and a symbol of the VHS era. Today, it evokes nostalgia for those who remember those times. Movie rentals at Blockbuster every Friday night. Blockbuster was an iconic place to rent movies for the weekend. Friday nights were often spent searching for the perfect movie for family viewing. The shelves were stocked with new releases and classics, and the store's atmosphere made it feel like a party. Choosing a movie was an important ritual, and having a copy on the shelf was a real treat. The famous phrase, "be kind, rewind," was a reminder to rewind the tape before returning it. Today, many people fondly remember those trips to video rentals. Recording songs from the radio onto cassette tape, being careful not to catch the DJ's voice. Before the advent of digital music, recording songs from the radio onto cassette tape was a popular way to create your own compilations. Listeners would wait for their favorite song to start so they could press record just in time, trying not to catch the DJ's voice. Sometimes they had to endure scraps of commercials or the host's comments. These mixtapes were personal and were often given to friends or loved ones. The recording process required patience and skill, but it was a joy. Today it is perceived as a romantic ritual of a bygone era. Sony's Walkman is the first personal portable player. The Sony Walkman revolutionized the way people listen to music, allowing them to enjoy their favorite songs anywhere. Its compact size and ability to use headphones made it an indispensable accessory. The Walkman became a symbol of individuality and freedom. It accompanied people on trips, on walks, and even during sports. The Walkman marked the beginning of the era of personal electronics. Today, it is considered a design icon and a technological breakthrough of its time. Cassette recorders with a double deck for copying. Double-deck cassette recorders allowed cassettes to be copied, which was especially useful for making your own compilations. Users could record songs from one cassette tape to another, adjusting the order of the tracks. This also made it easy to share music between friends. The copying process was simple and affordable, which helped spread the music culture. Such tape recorders became a popular part of home audio systems. Today, they evoke nostalgia among music lovers and collectors. Televisions with manual channel changer knobs and rabbit ears antenna. In the 1980s, televisions often had manual channel changers and antennas known as rabbit ears. You had to physically rotate the antenna or change its position to adjust the signal. The picture could be choppy, and viewers used tinfoil or other methods to improve reception. Changing channels required effort, especially if there was no remote control. Such televisions were the standard in most homes. Today, they are considered retro devices and collector's items. Shooting home movies on a VHS camera the size of a suitcase. VHS home video cameras were bulky and heavy, but they made it possible to capture life's important moments. Family gatherings, birthdays, and school performances were often recorded on these cameras. The process of filming required a certain amount of skill and patience. The tapes were kept in home archives and reviewed at family gatherings. Despite the inconvenience, these cameras were popular and valued for their ability to preserve memories. Today, these recordings are valuable artifacts of the past. A rotary disc dial telephone with a long cord. Rotary disc dial telephones were common in homes of the 1980s. You had to spin a disc to dial a number, which took time. The long cord allowed you to walk away from the machine, but was often tangled. Talking on such a phone was an essential part of daily life. Calls to friends and relatives were made through such devices. Today, they are seen as a symbol of a bygone era and objects of vintage design. The black and green screen of an Apple II or Commodore 64 computer. The Apple II and Commodore 64 computers were popular home computers with black and green screens. They were used for gaming, learning, and programming. The graphics were primitive but fascinating to the users of the time. Many children learned the basics of programming on these machines. Games such as Oregon Trail became iconic. Today, these computers are considered classics and collector's items. 5.25-inch floppy disks and the first computer games on them. 5.25-inch floppy disks were the primary storage medium for computers in the 1980s. They were used to store programs and games. Floppy disks were flexible and required careful handling. Loading a game from a floppy disk could take several minutes. Users often collected floppy disks containing their favorite games. Today, they are a symbol of the early era of personal computers. Oregon Trail game on school computers. This was one of the first educational video games that almost all school children of the 1980s are familiar with. It was installed on Apple II school computers, and children enthusiastically controlled their virtual truck crossing America in the 19th century. The game was both exciting and grim. You could die of dysentery, drown on the crossing, or lose your food to theft. At the time, the very possibility of playing on a computer at school seemed an incredible luxury. The graphics were primitive, but kids put their imagination into it. Oregon Trail became a ritual and a source of nostalgia for an entire generation. The movie Back to the Future as a cultural reference point. The appearance of the movie in 1985 was a true cultural event. Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly became an icon, and the DeLorean car became a symbol of the dream of time travel. Everyone was discussing catchphrases like, "Great Scott," and dreaming of hoverboards. The soundtrack by Huey Lewis in the News was playing from every tape recorder. The film combined science fiction, humor, family drama, and teen energy, making it perfect for young viewers. It shaped perceptions of the past and future for the 80s generation. Four-wheeled roller skates, not linear roller skates. These roller skates were massive, with heavy boots bolted to a platform with 4 rubber wheels, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. They were worn at discos, roller rinks, or just skating around garages and driveways. Some models had laces that kept coming undone, and the rollers themselves were decorated with glitter or neon colors. Kids decorated them with stickers and sometimes even stuffed soft fabric inside to keep them from chafing. Roller disco to the hits of Blondie or Madonna was a real event. It was not only fun, but also a way to demonstrate dexterity and style. Members-only jackets are a fashion peak. These jackets with narrow cuffs, epaulets on the shoulders, and lettering on the chest became a status symbol. They were worn by teenagers and adults alike, on dates, parties, and to school, especially cool-looked models in pastel or black colors. They were actively promoted by celebrities, and wearing such a jacket was a sign that you are in the theme. Often they were zipped up not to the end so that the brightly colored collar of the t-shirt underneath was visible. Over time, they became so iconic that they are now referenced in movies and TV series as a marker of the era. Glow bracelets, glow sticks, and party accessories. Glow sticks have become a phenomenon at parties and school events. They were activated by bending them, after which they began to glow brightly in the dark. These bracelets were worn on wrists, necks, or even attached to shoelaces. The glowing accessories were perfect for dancing under ultraviolet light. They created a sense of futurism and fun, especially when combined with synth-pop music. Some kids even tried to take them apart to see how they glowed, which of course alarmed their parents. Posters of Tiger Morrison or Molly Ringwald on teenagers' walls. Teenagers' rooms in the 80s were lined with posters of their idols. Girls hung Molly Ringwald, the heroine of iconic John Hughes teen movies like 16 Candles and Pretty in Pink. Boys, posters of bodybuilders or athletes like Tiger Morrison if they were sports and WWF fans. Sometimes posters from magazines like Tiger Beat or 17 took up an entire wall. They served as a way of self-expression, a marker of hobbies, and a topic of discussion among friends. To take down such a poster meant that the idol had changed. An eraser in the form of a pencil topper with a scent. These little erasers didn't just erase, they smelled like strawberries, grapes, banana, and even pizza. They were put on the end of a pencil and became the envy of classmates. Many collected them rather than use them for their intended purpose, so as not to ruin the flavor and shape. Some were shaped like animals, ice cream, or cars. Sometimes the scent weathered quickly, but they were still a favorite school accessory. It was one of those small but memorable elements of school life. Textbook covers made from a brown paper bag. Almost every textbook was covered by hand, with a wrapper made from a paper bag from the grocery store. This protected the book from wear and tear, and at the same time turned it into a canvas for creativity. Kids would draw rock band logos, comic book logos, or their favorite characters on the covers. Teachers often required covers to keep books in good condition for years to come. At times, the paper was taped together, and the name was signed at the bottom so it wouldn't get lost. Such a cover was a simple but universal element of school culture. Push-button telephones with answering machine on cassette, desk phones with a wire were an essential part of every home. The answering machine was a separate device with a tiny cassette inside that recorded voice messages. People would try to record funny or original greetings and then listen to the messages with excitement. Sometimes the tape would run out and the last words would be cut off, sparking curiosity. There were times when they forgot to delete old messages and the answering machine filled up completely. This device was a bridge between home and the outside world, especially important in the era before cell phones. Cartoons on Saturday mornings, a whole block of 4 or 5 hours. Saturday mornings were a real holiday for children. The channels broadcast cartoons one after another. Transformers, G.I. Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Care Bears, Smurfs. It was a ritual. Wake up early, grab a bowl of sugary cereal, and sit in front of the TV. The parents were asleep at this time, and it was the child's private time. Often between cartoons, there were funny commercials showing toys that were immediately coveted. Saturday morning shows became an important part of children's identity in the 80s. Kids in the Class of 402 and other high school shows on PBS. Although Kids in Class 402 became popular a little later, many 80s kids grew up on early PBS school shows like Reading Rainbow, Square One TV, and 3-2-1 Contact. These shows were educational but presented in a fun way, with songs, animation, and memorable hosts. For example, Reading Rainbow inspired kids to read by talking about books in a documentary style. 3-2-1 Contact made science accessible and even included segments about forensics. Everyone had a favorite show to look forward to all day. These shows became the foundation for children's learning about the world in the pre-internet era. Huge bubble tape and Hubba Bubba gum. Bubble tape gum came rolled up in a round plastic box. The slogan, "It's 6 feet of bubble gum for you, not them," was known to every child. It wasn't just a way to freshen their breath, it was a game. Who could take the longest bite? Hubba Bubba gums were a little softer and also came in rich fruit flavors. The smell of the open pack was associated with recess at school and summer days outside. The bubbles from it were so big that they often stuck to your face. Capri Sun drinks in soft sachets with a thin tube. Capri Sun looked like something from the future, a silver sachet that had to be pierced with a thin tube. It wasn't easy. Sometimes the sachet would squirm and you'd pierce it through. The process itself was part of the ritual at school lunches. The flavor was sweet and a little watery. Pacific Cooler was particularly popular. Capri Sun was a constant at picnics, camps, and school field trips. It was often compared to adult beverages because of its unusual packaging, even though it was strictly a kid's drink. Garbage Pail Kids sticker gum wrappers. Garbage Pail Kids were a parody of the Cabbage Patch Kids dolls, but with hideous, grotesque images. Each character had a punny name, like Atom Bomb or Barfin' Barbara, and was depicted in a silly or disgusting situation. These stickers were issued as collector's cards, and many children exchanged them or glued them into notebooks. In schools, some teachers banned them because of the inappropriate content. Kids had their own aesthetic. The more disgusting, the cooler. Collections were admired by classmates and envied by those who could not find rare cards. Collectible cards with baseball players or movie characters. Collectible cards, especially baseball cards, were not just a hobby but an entire subculture. Everyone knew which players were worth more, and kids would make deals for rare cards. There were also movie cards. Star Wars, E.T., Ghostbusters, often with stills from the movies and chewing gum inside the pack. The cards were folded into plastic albums or held in rubber bands. Sometimes kids would pretend to trade stocks, discussing how a player's value would increase. It was learning, economics, and passion all in one. Television test signal and the caption, "Please stand by." Before the 24-hour TV broadcast, screens at night were filled with a beeping sound and an image with colored bars, usually accompanied by "Please stand by" or "We'll be right back after this technical difficulty." This beep became an almost eerie association with the silence of late night. It meant that's it, the TV day is over, go to sleep. For some, it evoked an unsettling sense of the end, and for others, a strange nostalgia. Today, this aesthetic is used in retro design and is considered a symbol of the analog era. Jumping on the bed for MTV when it first launched. When MTV first launched in 1981, it was like opening a portal into the world of adult and fashion. Teenagers would turn on the channel, turn the sound up loud, and literally jump on the bed, singing along to the hit "Video Killed the Radio Star." MTV didn't just show music videos. It shaped taste, style, even behavior. Parents often didn't understand what this noise music was, but for kids, it was part of rebellious self-expression. Teenagers' rooms were turned into impromptu discos. MTV had something magical. It made music visual. Michael Jackson and Madonna's first music videos. Michael Jackson's Thriller music video was a real event. It was shown like a movie premiere. The intricate choreography, makeup, and plot made it more than just a music video. Madonna with her "Like a Virgin and Material Girl" shocked parents, but mesmerized teenagers. These clips became a topic of discussion at school and around the dinner table. Many kids tried to replicate Jackson's moves in front of a mirror. MTV turned these artists into global icons and 80s kids into their first true fans. The phrase "I Pity the Fool" by Mr. T from the A-Team. The A-Team was one of the most popular action series of the decade, and Mr. T became a star due to his muscular looks, hairstyle, and massive chains. His phrase "I pity the fool" became a household name and was often repeated at school, on the playground, and in commercials. He was both intimidating and good-natured, making him a hero to boys. Often children imitated his intonations by wearing homemade gold chains. Mr. T also appeared in social campaigns teaching respect for parents and not to hurt the weak. He became a symbol of cool with morals. Trapper Keeper Velcro notebooks for school. Trapper Keeper wasn't just a folder, it was the #1 school accessory. It had Velcro or a button, brightly colored covers with neon patterns, space scenes or animals. Inside was a ring mechanism, pockets for cards, schedules, and stickers. Everyone dreamed of a Trapper Keeper with a certain design, and whoever had one was instantly cool. Teachers sometimes complained about the Velcro noise when the whole class opened folders at the same time. But for kids in the 80s, it was a matter of pride and organization at the same time. Reebok sneakers with Velcro closures. In the 80s, Reebok was at the height of its popularity, especially with its Velcro models. These sneakers were comfortable and didn't require tying the laces, making them perfect for kids. Some models had double or even triple Velcro, which added a futuristic look. Parents appreciated them for their practicality, and kids appreciated them for their style. Velcro sounded loud, and the whole class would turn around when someone took off their sneakers. Many people associate these sneakers with gym class and street games after school. The Simon game with colored flashing buttons. Simon was a round electronic device with 4 lighted buttons that tested memory and reaction. The game emitted sequences of colors and sounds that had to be repeated in the correct order. The chain got longer and longer with each level, and the player had to concentrate hard. It was fun and a bit hypnotic, especially in the dark when the lights seemed magical. Visitors would bring Simon and have competitions to see who could hold on the longest. It became the symbol of the first interactive games before home consoles came along. TV shows Growing Pains, Full House, Olaf. Growing Pains was about the Seaver family, where teenage problems were combined with warm humor and moral lessons. Full House in Russia, difficult parenting, became a real classic with charismatic uncles, cute kids, and the invariable awe in every episode. Alf, an alien with sarcasm and a love for cats, became a children's idol, and his puppet animation added magic to the series. These shows were watched as a family in the evenings. They taught empathy, patience, and the importance of family, but they did it in a fun way. Many people still have phrases and titles from these shows in their heads. Climbing trees without adult supervision. Kids in the 80s spent hours in backyards and trees, without cell phones, GPS, or adults watching their every move. Climbing was not just fun, but a way to experience freedom and a test of courage. Everyone had their own secret tree, with a branch that served as a throne or observation platform. Sometimes boards were used to build huts and bases where they gathered with friends. Falls and abrasions were the norm, but no one was particularly worried. It was a time when the world seemed big and adults hardly interfered in the games. Collections of badges and stickers on notebooks. School backpacks and notebooks were covered with stickers, with band logos, cartoons, slogans like "Rad" or "Totally Awesome." Badges with pins were clipped onto jeans or pencil cases. Especially popular were those with characters from the Smurfs, Transformers, and rock bands. Some people traded stickers like cards, trying to find the rarest ones. There were even sticker albums that children proudly showed off to their friends. Stickers were not spared, and many notebooks were completely glued. It was a way of expressing identity before social media. School lunchboxes with cartoon characters. Lunchboxes were made of metal or plastic, with colorful images of characters like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, My Little Pony, He-Man, or Star Wars. Each child felt it was their duty to choose a lunchbox that expressed their taste and interests. Inside was a plastic bottle with a screw-on lid for juice or milk. The sounds with which the lid screwed on were familiar at recess. Sometimes the kids would swap food, discussing whose lunchbox was cooler. A lost or forgotten lunchbox was the tragedy of the day. Zubaz pants and neon aerobics accessories. Zubaz pants were brightly colored, striped, and baggy, worn by kids and adults alike. They were originally designed for bodybuilders, but quickly became a fashion item. Knitted gaiters and bangs under the headband are the fashion from Flashdance. After the release of the movie Flashdance in 1983, a real mania for the dance style began. Knitted gaiters were worn over leggings or right over the legs, regardless of whether you were dancing. Headbands and fluffed bangs completed the look. It seemed like everyone was suddenly a ballerina or aerobic dancer. Even school dances and performances were not without such outfits. It was a style of freedom, energy, and inner strength. There was something daring in it, but at the same time cozy. The animated series He-Man and the She-Ra dolls. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe became iconic due to its epic splash screen and memorable phrase, "I have the power." The plot unfolded on the planet Eternia, and He-Man himself was a muscular superhero in fur underpants. Toys based on the cartoon sold in the millions. Figures, Grayskull Castle, and villains like Skeletor. Girls liked She-Ra, Princess of Power, a heroine with a golden sword and a shining costume. Siblings would have battles between the dolls, combining the two worlds. These toys were more than just fun. They shaped children's imagination and sense of power. The board games Mousetrap and Candyland. Mousetrap was an unusual game where you had to assemble an entire working trap before starting the main part. The assembly process was more joyful than the game itself, especially the final moment when the ball rolled down the path and triggered the mechanism. Candyland was a bright and simple game, perfect for younger children. Its colorful fields and characters like Lord Licorice or Queen Frostune were enchanting. They were games that could be played as a family with popcorn and no rush. They united generations and taught patience and fair play. The first Game Boy with a green screen and Tetris. Nintendo's original Game Boy came out in 1989 and was a revolution. A portable game console that you could take anywhere. Its screen was green with dark pixels, but that didn't stop millions of kids and teens from spending hours playing the game. Tetris came with a bundle and quickly became a mania thanks to its simplicity and addictive gameplay. People competed for records until the batteries ran out, using 4AA finger batteries. The sound of falling pieces in Tetris music still evokes nostalgia in many people. Despite its simple graphics, the Game Boy ushered in an era of mobile gaming. Casio watch with calculator. This watch was not just an accessory, it was real technology on the wrist. LA Looks hair gel and super voluminous hairstyles. LA Looks gel was sold in clear tubes and was so strong that it could hold a hairstyle all day. Even while dancing, many applied it thickly, creating spikes sticking up or sleek waves like from music videos. Super voluminous hairstyles became a trademark of the 80s, especially when combined with bangs whipped up with blow dryers and hairspray. Hair became a real art object, and caring for it required time and skill. Some even slept with their hair up so as not to have to repeat the styling in the morning. This style is associated with boldness, flamboyance, and music videos on MTV. Machines with Pac-Man and Space Invaders in arcades. Arcades were a place of attraction for teenagers. The flickering lights, coin sounds, and arcade music created a special atmosphere. Pac-Man, with its simple but addictive gameplay, became a cultural icon. Players strategized to avoid getting ghosted and eat all the dots. Space Invaders, with its approaching rows of aliens, was intense and required focus. Queues lined up at the most popular machines, and every coin token was worth its weight in gold. It was an era when one game could keep you in suspense longer than an entire movie. Nintendo cartridges and the need to blow into them to make them work. Many people remember the iconic practice of taking the cartridge out and blowing on the inside if it wouldn't start. Sure, it didn't exactly help, but it seemed like a magical ritual that sometimes actually worked. One inserted the cartridges carefully, pressed down, and prayed for the title screen to appear. The cartridges were massive, with recognizable stickers and glossy lettering. Entire libraries of games. Exchanging them was a serious matter. You had to make sure the game came back in one piece. It was a time when games were seen as physical treasures. Collecting box checks from breakfast cereals for mail-in prizes. Breakfast cereal manufacturers like Captain Crunch and Fruit Loops offered promotions. Collect the right number of receipts, usually cut from the box. Mail them in and get a prize. Sometimes it was figurines, toys, keychains, or even exclusive comic books. The kids specifically persuaded their parents to buy the brand that had the cool raffle. The process was slow. You had to wait 6 to 8 weeks for the package to arrive. But when it finally arrived, it was a triumph. It taught patience and made breakfast unexpectedly exciting. Calls to friends asking, "Can I come out to play?" Before the age of smartphones, it all started with a phone call to your home phone. Often with the phrase, "Hello, is name home? Can I come out to play?" Parents of friends might say, "He's already gone." And then the quest to find him in the neighborhood would begin. It was its own form of navigation and coordination without maps or GPS. Sometimes friends would gather under the tree or by the swing set, and everyone knew where that was. The very phrase "going out to play" carried spontaneity, summer freedom, and anticipation of adventure. Now it evokes a slight sadness, as a symbol of the bygone era of pre-digital communication. Light-Bright and Etch-a-Sketch kits for creativity. Light-Bright allowed you to create glowing pictures by inserting colored plastic cloves into an illuminated screen. They seemed magical in the dark, especially if you used templates with images of animals or cars. Etch-a-Sketch was a device with 2 twiddles that allowed you to draw lines on a gray screen. Popular images included stairs, houses, and complex patterns created with incredible patience. You had to shake the device to erase the pattern. Magic. These toys encouraged imagination and were a favorite on quiet, rainy evenings. The More You Know television commercials with rainbows. These public service announcements with an appearing rainbow and starfish taught children important life lessons, from respect for others to the rules of the road. They were shown between morning cartoons and evening programs and became part of the cultural code. The slogan, "The More You Know," became a meme long before the internet. Sometimes they were seriously discussed in school, especially if bullying or safety topics were involved. Many people remember these clips for their visual style, a dark background, a simple message, and a recognizable melody. It was a subtle but effective way to educate through television. Safety lessons from McGruff the crime dog and Smokey the bear. McGruff, an anthropomorphic detective dog with a husky voice, taught children how to avoid dangerous situations and recognize bad people. His phrase, "Take a bite out of crime," became popular, and his appearance in schools became an event. Smokey the bear reminded about fire safety rules, especially in forests, with the slogan, "Only you can prevent forest fires." Both characters were featured on TV spots, printed on posters, and even made into toys. These images were part of a national campaign and were credible to children. They created an understanding of responsibility in an accessible and memorable way. The objects and habits that surrounded children in the 1980s are not just memories. They are a trace of the time reflected in toys, cartoons, fashion, and even school supplies. They became part of the cultural code of an entire generation, shaping their perception of the world. The video shows how everyday trifles of the past come to life in the memory when emotions, images, and atmosphere are behind them. Everything that once seemed mundane now becomes a valuable chronicle of an era. Write in the comments which of these memories have stayed with you forever.